Rise for the pledge, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on our agenda this evening is board reorganization. I have the list of committee representatives, the names of the committee representatives, as well as a place for the new chair and vice chair. Just, we would like to go through the list and we can plug away at that.
Do you have copies of that for us so that we can write down what we volunteer for?
I do not, but I could write it down and then make the copy so everyone has it.
Okay.
Unless you'd like for me to make a copy now, and I could do
I would
that.
prefer that, please.
Mr. Gregoire?
Thank you.
Yeah, can you make all of us copies, Jerry, please?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Would you like to wait until?
No, I think we have to.
Copy? Okay. So at this point, since we don't have the list in front of you, we would start off with the chair.
I make a motion to renominate Steve Brown as chair.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. Go ahead.
I'll second it.
For discussion?
Why? Just kidding.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Unanimous.
I'll make a motion.
Abstain.
One abstention.
I'll make a motion to nominate Bonnie Sear as our vice chair.
Do I have a second?
Second. Aye.
One abstention.
The next on the list is a budget committee representative. Currently, Mr. Brown is a representative, and the alternate is Mr. Fogg.
I know.
Thank you very much, sir. I'll make a motion to nominate Mr. Brown back to the budget committee.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
For discussion?
I think Steve wants to say something.
Well, I was just gonna say, do you want it?
No, I think the voters spoke, that they'd rather see somebody different there. Thank you.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
And for the alternate?
I was gonna nominate Steve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
For discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
No abstention. Next is policy committee.
I'll make a motion to have Bonnie Sear back on there.
Oh, second.
For discussion? There are
How-
two members of that committee.
Yeah, can I also make a motion to put, do any of you, actually, we should have discussion. Does anybody want to go on the policy committee that hasn't been on before?
I can do it.
That's you.
Nope, that's fine.
We have one motion on the floor so far with Bonnie, so we should clear that up.
Is it a minimum of two?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is it a maximum of two?
Well, there's not really a maximum, is
No,
there?
I don't think there's a maximum.
No.
No, you could do three if we consider a quorum of the full board. However, we do have it as a standing subcommittee, so.
Well,
You could go
I'll
more
second
than that.
Bonnie's then.
Okay. All in favor of Bonnie?
Aye.
Aye.
One abstention. I nominate Norma Joy for policy.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 One abstention.
Negotiations Committee representative.
I guess I have a question on that.
Mhm.
Which contracts are up for negotiations?
We'll be negotiating the paraprofessionals, and the teachers aren't until 2016.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to nominate Bonnie Seer for that committee. I'll second it.
Two, yes.
I make a motion for Steve Brown.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
Do you want to do it, Steve? You up for the responsibility, Mr. Brown?
Are you the chair? Are you running the meeting?
Well, I was gonna-
He's
I was
asking
asking
you.
a question.
Oh, okay.
This discussion.
Yeah.
I'm totally disgusted with the discussion.
Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain.
Professional Development Representative. There's only one member that serves on this.
Should there be more than one?
It's a pretty big committee already. We have a representative from Wakefield and one from Milton on this.
And then you have both of the union.
Yes. We have representation from the union, from the teachers as well, outside of a union representative, paraprofessionals, curriculum coordinator, myself, the principals, parent. And that's something that's developed for the whole SAU, both districts.
How do we make sure we get, all right, I can bring that up later.
I'll make a motion to nominate Mr. Brown for the PDR.
Second,
Second.
discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Next is the Facilities Committee. That's two members serve on that.
I'll make a motion to, what's,
I'd like to, but it's the times of during the day when they meet. I'm usually in Mass. It's the meeting part for me, but I'd like to be on that one.
Well, you can always change the meeting time, right? That's the
Sure.
ability of being on the committee.
Absolutely.
I'd like to be on it as well.
I would as well.
Can we have three? No.
Good.
Sure, it's a subcommittee.
I make a motion to have Bob Willett, Steve Brown, Ralph Fogg, Facilities Committee.
I'll second that.
That's not gonna work, because you're gonna have 3 abstentions.
It's true.
Oh, that's true. So we have to do it individually.
Yes.
I make a motion for Bob Willett to be on the Facilities Committee.
I'll
Have a
second it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Staying.
I make a motion for Ralph Fogg to be on the Facilities Committee, as well as Steve Brown. I can do both of those.
Yeah.
Do I have a second?
Second.
You figured that out.
All in favor?
Yeah,
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Yeah, you have to
You
abstain.
have-
Abstain, I'm
You don't
sorry.
have to.
You should.
Should.
I abstain.
Okay.
You see how he rolls.
Wellness Committee Representative, one member for this position.
What does that constitute again?
It's just, it's a meeting with the Wellness Committee as a board representative to discuss the wellness policy and any other wellness initiatives that are happening in the school.
At what point throughout the day and when do they meet?
Not sure, Mr. Gregoire, when does the Wellness Committee meet?
They meet on Wednesdays from 3:30 to 4:30. I have to see what Wednesday they actually meet on one.
Yeah, because Wednesdays would
Yeah.
conflict with policies and facilities, so it's gonna depend on,
Yeah. It would be, it's off schedule from the board meetings.
it is.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to nominate Bonnie if she'd like to be there.
Actually, I wouldn't, but thanks anyway. There's a couple others I'd rather have instead.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
No, because I said no.
Well, there was a motion on the floor, so motion fails due to lack of a second.
Uh-huh.
Can I make a motion to nominate Norma Joy for that?
You can't, the time conflicts with mine.
Oh, my goodness. I'm running out of nominees.
How about Ralph?
No.
Yep.
Do I have a
Yeah, how about
second?
Ralph.
Motion fails due to a lack of second.
Do you have time for that? I can make the time for that. I'll do it. Is once a month?
I'm finding out right now.
It's once a month, I believe.
Perfect. Is that when you meet now?
Yeah, it's once a month, usually the end of the month.
I'm finding out what day of the month. It's once a month. I'm not sure what month is it, what day it is.
Yeah.
But it's only once a month, I believe, and it's usually towards the end of the month.
I took it over from Vivian, and then we gave it
Moved
to
it to
Norma.
me.
I just texted Joe.
Oh, that's
Do I have a motion?
I'll renominate Bonnie.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
She can't quit on us now.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No abstain.
Next is the New Hampshire School Board Association delegate.
I love this position, and I would really like to stay on as it. I find it so informative. I would really appreciate the opportunity to do it again. And if someone else would like to come with me, that would be great, because the more the merrier, and if I miss something, someone else will grab it. It's occasional meetings throughout the year, and then one Saturday delegation, usually, I believe it's January, that you go and you vote on all the legislator, all the, like, everything that's going on there that they need us to vote on going throughout the year of what our goals are.
There are 2 seats for this.
Oh, really?
I'll nominate Bonnie for this position.
Thank you.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
One abstention. Anyone else interested? Okay. I nominate Ralph Fogg.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Thank you.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Oops, abstain.
Cafe Services Representative, this is one person. Oh, actually,
we
2,
have
I'm sorry.
2.
2?
Yeah.
Yes.
I would also like to stay on
I
for
would
this if
too.
you, yeah.
I'll make a motion to nominate Bonnie and Bob as the Cafe Services representative.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain.
Technology Committee Representative, there's 1 seat on this.
I know that I was passed, but I don't know what it includes this year moving forward, so
Norma Joyce currently is
oh, good.
the representative.
I was.
He was.
I was.
Are you able, Norma?
What's the time of the meetings? Because
Mr. Gregoire now, Technology Committee.
3:30 also.
And that one kind of jumps around a little bit. We don't necessarily always meet on a Wednesday because it's hard to have it on the same day because some of the people are in multiple
Okay.
committees.
then yes, I can do it.
So we would give you an email and well ahead of time to let you know the dates.
Okay.
I'll nominate Norma Joy for that TCR.
I'll
I'll
second.
second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Thank you, Norma.
Next is a Transportation Committee, there's 2 seats on this.
I like to stay with this too.
Yep. I would too.
I nominate Steve Brown and Bob Olet for transportation.
I'll second it for discussion.
Discussion?
You guys are mean to me.
Do you want to be on there too?
No,
You
no,
can
I
be
don't.
on there.
Why
No,
can't
no,
you be on there too?
You can be on
I
that too.
don't, I'm just gonna go and eavesdrop, that's all. I'm gonna eavesdrop.
Well, that's what we do for you on facilities, so what makes a difference?
Yeah.
I seconded the motion for discussion.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstain.
Abstain. I'll nominate Ralph as a 3rd member to that Transportation Committee.
An alternate, in case somebody doesn't make it, is that what you mean?
Mm-mm.
No,
Just be on it.
just be on it.
I'll second it.
Discussion?
They're doing that just to make me feel better.
Yep.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
I abstain.
I'll abstain too.
No,
You can
aye.
vote.
That's why it's just for him. Aye.
Safe Routes to School Representative, currently 2 seats on that,
Is that still even in process?
Never did
not
that.
that I know of.
So-
probably eliminate that unless we need to bring it up again, and I could bring that to the board to
So-
ask for representatives.
Can I make a motion to eliminate the Safe Routes to School committee?
Do I have a second
Discussion?
for discussion?
There was no meetings.
Well,
Right, well, there was a should we,
Well, they tried
should we
dates.
check first, and then if it's absolved, then we can make a motion to do away with it? I think
Yes.
that would
Yes,
probably
we
be-
do that.
Mr. Tursi, I can say that
Go
it
ahead.
hasn't been eliminated. There weren't any meetings, there weren't any decisions made this past year. But I did get an email from Teresa Williams recently asking what we should do, and the recommendation that I made was have a meeting soon
oh, okay.
to make that decision.
Okay.
Didn't DOT come down with a decision that because they hadn't heard
Mhm.
something within a certain amount of period, a certain time,
Timeframe.
that they had come to the conclusion that it was, that was Teresa's email, right? Basically, it said that DOT had shared or seen a lack of information come across their
I didn't
table.
see an email that the DOT made a decision, the last email that I saw had, for, guidance. My thought was to have another meeting.
I haven't received anything, so.
Well,
I thought, I was under the understanding that they didn't go with the sidewalks because the town didn't want to take responsibility in maintaining them, and they accepted the signage.
And the signage has already been put out.
So.
It was done in the fall.
That's my understanding of it, so I don't know whether, it sounds like it's coming to an end, but maybe we should check to,
I'll make a motion to table this particular assignment until we have, till the next meeting, and get more information on it.
Sure. So there was a motion on the floor to eliminate this. Was there a second?
I'll
Oh,
withdraw my motion.
okay. And you have a motion to table it?
I do.
Is there a second?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Mr. Tursi,
Yes, sir.
I may,
Mhm.
the Wellness Committee meets on the last Wednesday of the month, Bonnie?
Last Wednesday of the
Last
month
Wednesday of the month, yes,
at 3:30?
correct.
Next is the capital improvement project representative. There's one member that sits on this.
We gotta make sure we stay on top of that and make sure we have our paperwork in on time.
Currently Ralph
I
is the
nominate
representative.
Ralph.
You want to do it again?
I'd like to do it again, if,
I'll make a
Motion.
motion to nominate Ralph to the capital improvement project.
I'd rather have your second Bob's motion.
What's that?
He made a
Bob already
motion.
made the motion.
Oh,
Do I
we
have a
did?
second?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't
Oh,
hear your
all right,
motion.
no, second, sorry about that.
Discussion?
Let's
All-
keep it straight.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. I'll abstain.
And the last study, the SAU Withdrawal Study Committee, that's something that we don't need at this point.
We don't necessarily need at this point, but we still have things that have to be put forth to the voters next year. So we have to make sure, even if we don't have a committee, that we stay vigilant on it to make sure that those don't get forgotten.
Correct.
So I don't know if it's in the best interest of the board to keep a committee, just to make sure that we stay on top of it. And make sure that we check in with one another to make sure that everything's fallen into place and, we've done everything we need to do. I don't know
That's
what
fine.
you feel about that.
I think it's fine to have representatives on that committee. You keep that committee.
Well,
if it's
at
ever
least,
necessary in the
at least,
future.
at least until after the election, so that we know that we've closed everything out, and if someone has a question, they know who to go to.
It's a great suggestion. Currently have two people, 2 seats on that committee.
I'll nominate Bonnie to go to that.
Yes, please.
Have a second?
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye?
Aye.
Okay.
Do you want to do it again, too?
Yeah.
And I'd like to make a motion for Steve Brown.
Have a second?
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay, that'll do it.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman Brown, I'll pass the meeting over to you.
If I can take the agenda out of order for a moment, I'd like to address a letter of interest from Beth Selden to be the school board recording secretary. I'll make that motion to appoint her as school board recording secretary.
I'll second that.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Beth.
You're welcome, thank you.
Thanks, and welcome aboard.
And just before we get into the manifest, welcome Mr. Fogg and Mrs. Joy back to the board. Congratulations on the election.
Steve, I was looking at Article 84 of the state constitution here. It says any person having taken and subscribed the oath of allegiance, and the same being filed in the secretary's office, shall not be obliged to take said oath again. And I don't know if that applies to returning members of the school board.
I do not believe that you have to get re-sworn in after, if you're already on and you've been sworn in, I do not believe that you have to be re-sworn in.
Is it?
You do?
Is
Well-
it possible, Beth being a district clerk, could we?
She hasn't been. I brought this up prior to the meeting because Mr. Tercey has contacted the school district attorney, and the school district attorney says that you do not.
Can we ask, and it says in the law book, the Constitution, that you do not have to either?
If you've already taken the oath for this particular office, it says, shall not be obliged to take said oath again. Now, that doesn't mean somebody couldn't step forward and say, I want to take the oath.
Right, but the problem we have tonight is that Mrs. Selden hasn't been sworn in as the school district clerk, so she doesn't have the authority to swear the two of you in at this point.
So you mean it would be a mistake to get sworn in?
By Mrs. Selden, yes.
We don't make mistakes.
But once again, the school district attorney is stating that you do not. So,
So how do you feel, Mr. Tercey, on our movement forward with the meeting?
I think you're fine to move forward with the meeting. However, I would recommend that Ms. Joy and Mr. Fogg, and I know Ms. Selden's going to get sworn in. However, I don't feel that it'll interrupt the operations of the meeting this evening. Taking the advice of our district attorney.
I'm comfortable with that.
I feel comfortable with that.
All right, thank you. Do you know if, when we do take those oaths, that the school board, those do get recorded with the Secretary of State's office?
I don't know.
Andrew, can you, I'm looking at Governor Wentworth, and it says for February 13 students. Do we pay Governor Wentworth monthly? We do?
yes, we do.
Okay.
So we're back at our regular scheduled agenda.
Andrew, can you explain to me what, on page 12, what the 1969 Treasurer SAU 64 is for 42-187-17?
No, the checks.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay, what's the check number?
The check number is,
2958.
That's the monthly SAU fee that Wakefield pays to the SAU based on the budget.
And the Hyatt bill, that was a thing that, did that come through? I mean, is that something that the school board knew about and had already pre-planned the trip and all that good stuff?
The professional development opportunity,
Yeah.
that didn't come in front of the board.
Okay.
That might, one of them come out of the general budget either, comes out of the, grant.
It's all grant funded as well.
Ouch.
Things that need to be signed?
Just the checks. I don't think
Oh,
there's
there's
anything
still
else.
signing checks. Is there only two
You
here?
should be signing the checks.
Only check register and the... Everybody's all set. Can I have a motion to approve the manifest, please?
make that motion?
I'll second it.
Motion and second. All in favor? Aye. And that was, there was only those two, right, Andrew?
Yeah.
That one and
Just
Check
do-
register.
the check register. You sign that?
I did.
Public comment. Go ahead.
I think Mr. Gregoire can answer this. Is this the first year that the new school, report cards, the whole school is doing it? The new report cards?
Are we answering a question?
Can
Can you?
I'm just asking you.
Do you feel comfortable with it?
Yeah, sure. The whole school is not doing it. Sometimes it's public comment, isn't always public dialogue, so
Okay, what, are there just certain grades that are doing it?
currently, yeah.
Is it still on a trial basis, or is it?
Yeah, we didn't want to move forward until we didn't want to go backwards, but we
Right.
also want to move forward to make sure we have our curriculum in place so we can actually do competency-based report cards thoroughly. Hard to do when we don't have a set curriculum,
Okay,
but we don't want to go backward either.
okay. Thank you.
Certainly.
All set? All right,
I have a comment.
do you?
How come you skipped number 5 on the agenda?
Yeah, I just was looking at that, I was looking at this and minutes of the last meeting. I have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th line down is incorrect. The motion was to reaffirm all previous votes of the board.
Can you repeat that again?
Steve Brown, motion to reaffirm all previous board votes.
I do recall that being the motion. Was there, you had no time frame on that, right? We weren't going back to
No,
1962?
it was just, that was it. All previous
Oh.
votes of the board. Everybody all set? Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of March 5th, 2014, please, as amended?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Correspondence.
Mr. Chairman,
You know, yes, Mr.
I go back, that's, is that motion to approve both the public and non-public minutes of
Oh,
3/5/14?
Is there any reason why we can't do the non-public now?
I'll make a motion to approve the non-public minutes as written.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Gonna do public comment again?
Correspondence? You know, would you like to address that? Mr.
Certainly.
Cassidy?
Included in the packet, there's a letter from the Lee family, just thanking the board for their approval, for their son to attend Kingswood. So I just want to make sure if I ever get a letter that's addressed to me, but this is also addressed to the board as well, that I make sure you're aware that people are thankful for some of the decisions that you make.
Thank you. New business.
I don't have anything under new business. I have several items under the SCU 64.
All right.
I don't know if you, not really,
Well,
not really new business. Something I'd like to share with the board, but I gotta
Oh.
make 5 copies of everything, so.
well, you could either do it now or under old business.
It's just some of the stuff, I didn't know if
Can we just let them know again? Norma wanted to know about this. And I don't know if you want to attend again. I probably will attend again.
May I?
Good.
I was going to address that in C 64.
After the last meeting, I had talked about getting some information on some of the higher achieving schools and stuff like that, and I found that Massachusetts in the last 5 years have been up there. I think Texas is up there also, but I didn't get anything on them, but I did get some standards from California. It claims they're way up there in the academic achievement part, and I wanted to offer this to the administration. Maybe we could get copies of it, and I don't mind paying the fee for the amount of paperwork and stuff like that, but I'd like to share it with the other board members. I just was able to print this off at home and bring it in, so I guess I'm requesting the administration to make copies for the other 4 board members and yourselves if you'd like.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Is this one we're bringing up curriculum?
Pardon me?
Is this one we're bringing up curriculum then?
We probably should tie it together.
Is it new business? If it's new business, sorry.
How do you ask for guaranteed curriculum?
Can you define guaranteed curriculum for me, please? I might be able to answer that.
How do you ensure that the curriculum set forward covers every child every year to learn everything that's required of them, so that the parents can have a guarantee, and the children can have a guarantee that the kids are getting what they need? How do you assure academic success? And how do you have that mastery level of skills guaranteed? You look at some private schools, you look at some charter schools, and some of the charter schools, whether they're in Florida or here or other places, offer a guaranteed curriculum that every child going in that kindergarten year is going to be guaranteed that they're going to know everything by the end of the year. Communication is vital, and assessment is vital. And I don't necessarily believe that national testing makes everything okay. I think it's a classroom teacher and the other adults within the building that guarantee the success of the children in cooperation with the parents. I have read so much about Common Core, pros and cons, and how it affects this and how it affects that. How do you just say, I want a guarantee from the staff that you're going to teach my child what they need to know, and these are the guidelines that we want you to follow. You cannot waver from them. You cannot choose to not teach something. You can teach it in any way you can, but you have to be able to still have that vast, maybe a little lower, medium, and high, and have the children be challenged, and have the ones that aren't successful become successful. And I see in all of this, and I guess I'm going to ask, and I'm not going to be really popular for this, how do we guarantee that the kids are getting what they need to succeed every year? And how do you shake up the cart? And how do you make it diverse enough so that they're all successful? And how do the parents know? How do they know? It's like you're looking at, I don't even care what it's called. I don't care if it's called Common Core. I don't care if it's called Freaky Ah-Ah. I really don't care. As long as the kids get what they need and it's a guarantee, and the parents, the very first day of school, have a set guidelines and clear communication with the parents and the staff that the kids are going to be taught everything here and they're going to master this skill. If they don't master it, you're going to know, in your kindergarten classroom, and this is the only way I can explain this to you. In your kindergarten classroom, you know every child that knows how to spell their name within the first 30 seconds because you say, find your desk. Mm-hmm. They either can recognize their name or they can't. You know within the first 3 or 4 days of school who can recognize a number, who can recognize a letter, uppercase and lowercase. You know in the first week who can read, who can't read, who knows their numbers 1 to 100. And the teacher has assessed that, but yet we haven't had to have a national standardized test for everything. And I guess I had a very strong conversation with a young lady from this building. And I don't think that she's being given that opportunity. And I want to know that that's what we're offering the kids. I don't care what it's called. I just want to know that it's there and it's being done. And what information can you give me that that's what's being done? And it's like, I love the staff. We have great staff. But in what society, other business, is someone guaranteed a job even if they're not doing it to the 100%? Like tenure. I understand that you need job security, and I'm probably not going to be really popular for saying this, But merit, being rewarded for what you perform in your classroom, is how the rest of the United States gets paid. And I don't understand why, for some time now, we're not showing that it's okay to be a little competitive, and we want you to achieve more, and I need you to push so much information on me that I'm on information overload. I want to know, you say that we have no set curriculum. I want to, and I'm not trying to micromanage, but I'm trying to educate myself so that I can represent the kids and the families of Wakefield better. I want to know what you already have in place. I want to know what you're using, how the teachers are assessing. Are the classrooms being taught one thing, and the kids that maybe could get pushed forward aren't getting pushed forward, and the kids that maybe need to be retained aren't being retained? How do we guarantee the parents that when your child leaves kindergarten, they know what they know? And when they leave 8th grade, they know what they know. They've had homework, they know how to study, they've got good habits, they have good morals and values, they have manners. How do we tell them that they know everything that they need to make the positive choices of a teenager moving to high school?
Mr. Chair, I can tackle that question. The first point around the guaranteed success of a student is it's a responsibility of the community. The community includes the teacher, the principal, the assistant principal, the superintendent, the school board, the parents, community members that don't have students in the system. Everyone that's involved in the schools or involved in the community are responsible for the success of the student. If that happens, you have a guaranteed successful educational system. Your first question was around how do you guarantee a guaranteed curriculum, that term guaranteed curriculum. That is provided to a parent, to a community member, to a teacher, to a board, by taking standards and aligning standards vertically. And what that means is taking the standards from kindergarten that are required for kindergarten, make sure they're in place, and all the lessons are designed around those standards, and that students are being assessed based on those standards prior to going to first grade, and that those standards from kindergarten lead into first grade. And then the standards in first grade, same thing, you design your lessons around those standards, and that should show a progression of success of learning the skills and gaining the content knowledge to be successful for second grade. And then you have the standards in second grade, and that goes all the way up for Paul School specifically to 8th grade. So that is something that's put forward to the board as a curriculum that shows a progression of learning that's based on standards, that delineates the skills and content knowledge that a student needs to demonstrate mastery of prior to leaving that grade, and that the parents know that these are the standards being addressed, these are the units that are being addressed within that year, these are the concepts, the topics, the skills that are being addressed in that year, these are the resources that we use during that year. That provides a template for parents to also use to help in the instruction piece at home, or any community member that's looking to get involved in the school system. But that curriculum document that comes in front of the board should show that continuum of standards-based lesson planning from pre-K to 8. Most of the time it starts, you'll see a curriculum document that's K to 8, particularly in this. When that's presented to the board, and it's presented in a manner that it's well defined as to what the standards are and that progression of learning and all of those different units and the resources that we use, that's a guaranteed curriculum, because it's very clear and it shows the progression of standards that really are the expectations from going from one grade to the next. And it's what teachers use to design their lessons. Lessons might change throughout the year, however, the standards do not change. And the units don't tend to change very much either, however, the lessons will. That's what we're currently developing for the community as a whole, and will be presented in front of the board as what you might consider your guaranteed curriculum. It's posted on the website, it's available at any time, so that a parent or community member can have access to that and utilize the Wakefield School District K-8 curriculum to assist in any type of instruction that might happen so students are successful. That's a guaranteed curriculum. But that doesn't, I mean, you asked, you had several questions behind that. So with that curriculum, you also then have to evaluate the instruction based on the curriculum. Because as a administrator that is going in to evaluate their teaching staff, they should know by looking at a curriculum where they are within that, within those units based on those standards, and assess the instruction that's happening there. And also looking at student success based on assessments, whether it's classroom assessments, state assessments, whatever that might be, to determine if the instruction based on the curriculum is providing the effective delivery of that curriculum. So you really are evaluating instruction based on the curriculum. And that's through the evaluation process. In our professional growth plan, one of the components is student growth for the evaluation process. So you're looking at assessments to see whether students are showing growth based on those standards throughout the year. So that's how we determine if students are showing growth. And if they are not, then we have to address that so that they are successful going from one grade to the next. But it's not something you can put a sticker on and say this is a certified used vehicle and guarantee that, because there are many more variables involved when you're working with human beings and their different abilities. So that's something that's very difficult for people to understand, is that there are no guarantees when it comes to working with children and educating children because of the many variables that are involved. What we do need to do is make sure that students have the skills and content knowledge necessary to be successful prior to going to the next grade. And making sure we're providing those students with all the opportunities we possibly can, and really managing the instruction necessary for them to be successful. If they need additional reading instruction, we should be providing it. If they need additional math instruction, we should be providing it. If they need accelerated instruction, we should be providing it. That's what we need to do as a system, as a whole. And it starts with that foundation of the curriculum so that we can really develop the lessons around that. So I can't sit here and answer that. I can't, as a superintendent, give you a guarantee, but I can do the best with the work and the cooperation of the community to make sure we have a successful system.
I was going to say that, there's no guarantees in life. I have a bit of a problem with using the word guaranteed. You really can't. I don't think you can guarantee it. But then also, to one of Mr. Tercey's points, at the Professional Growth Committee, the observations from the principal were unable to be changed because they didn't comply with the collective bargaining agreement. So, I mean, there's some question,
Can you
as to
explain
that.
that?
I can explain the point Mr. Brown's making. At the Professional Growth Committee meeting, there was a discussion around mini observations. Mini observations are basically when an administrator walks through a classroom for 5 minutes, 10 minutes max. And they're more frequent compared to a formal 30-minute or full class observation. And in the collective bargaining agreement currently states that the observations will be a minimum, I believe, of 30 minutes. So Mr. Brown's point is that the conversation about mini observations is difficult to move forward without negotiating mini observations in general as part of amendment to the collective bargaining agreement.
I saw two hands, I don't know which one is, but first, Bob or Ralph.
I might forget my question if I don't hurry up and ask it. We really, as a board, have not actually been presented the curriculum that's now being, or because the curriculum's undeveloped, that's the only reason why we as a school board have not seen what's being given the children, is that right?
That's correct.
And I think, Bonnie's concern is we'd like to see what the kids are seeing, what the kids are learning, just so that we understand, there's many questions from people in the in our community, public, that ask us for answers, and without, the ability to answer the questions, I think we get frustrated as well as the people in the community. So your point about working with everybody, it's a good point. I think it's a good approach. But, I mean, one of those steps is to make sure that the board has the information as well.
Well, what I'd like to do is really just give the board, and maybe minimize the agenda, and give the board a full, basically, presentation of curriculum development, what we're currently doing around curriculum development, what has been done in the past around curriculum development, and just really provide that information for the board as probably a pretty lengthy presentation, just so you have an understanding.
Could we have a workshop for that?
I think I would absolutely love that. I think it would be great. It would give the board and the community that's watching a very good understanding of what it takes to develop a curriculum, particularly one that is going to really move our system forward as a school district.
And I just want it said that I have faith. I have a lot of faith, or I wouldn't be sitting in this chair. I'm concerned when you say that we haven't had a set curriculum for 20 years. That throws up so many red flags for me, because I'm worried about the kids that are in the building right now and moving forward, and I need to know in my heart of hearts, because there's nothing set in stone, that we've given them what they need. And I guess I need you to confirm that for me, because I have parents calling, and I have, even in the grocery store or what have you, and I need to be able to tell them that, although the standards that they're looking at haven't been in place, we hold high standards. And this is what we're doing to ensure that your child is successful. And I guess I need the background on that, just so that I can comfortably say that I not guarantee, but, well, yeah, I'm guaranteeing that I want to guarantee it. I want to know that the kids are getting educated, and they might be at different levels, but there's a guarantee for that set child, is what I want. And so I would love to set up a workshop. That would make me happy.
And what we can provide is any documentation that has happened in the past. And what we have for documentation is a list of the standards that have been put into what's known as a student-friendly wording. But there isn't that continuum of standards where it's laying out specifically what students need to know and need to know and demonstrate the content knowledge moving from grade to grade. It's listed, but it's not specific enough in my opinion, and this is only my opinion, to provide that support for anyone that wants to assist in instruction of students. So, and that's what we're working on, very, very detailed curriculum development. So there has been work that's happened in the past, and there is documentation. However, it doesn't show that continuum and detail to really develop a strong, in my opinion, guaranteed curriculum, using Mrs. Sears' words.
Well,
My question is, you answered some of it. What do we do if a child's being lagging behind a little bit, and on the flip side, if a child is excelled past the means of the class of what they're learning? What do we do to make them what's the word I'm looking for? Not bored in the classroom? What's the guarantees for that? Not using the word guarantee, but what are we doing for that type of thing?
So the first part of your question was if a student is lagging behind in some way, that needs to be caught early. And I think that's a very key point to make, is that it needs to be caught early, particularly in kindergarten and first grade. And at that point, it's a determination, is it a matter of, do they have something that's really hindering their progress? And if that's the case, then we put supports into place to make sure that the student is capable of achieving at grade level. That they throw terms around such as interventions. It's not one of my favorite words. I consider anything that you provide extra to a student as enrichment or an additional opportunity compared to an intervention. So if we do see a student struggling, that comes to the attention of the teachers. This student is struggling. It's based on assessments, classroom observation, and their teams get together to provide their thoughts around the supports necessary to move a student forward. That happens in general education as well as in special education, and it happens.
So you're saying that happens constantly?
Every day, every day, that there's always a question about students happening. It might be a conversation between two colleagues, there could be three together, there could be an administrator forming a team to have a conversation around students. That's the nature of our work. So that's if we see students are struggling.
This is the harder one.
This is the harder one, is if we see students that are excelling beyond grade level. That's what we tend to forget, is that there are many students that are excelling beyond what their grade says they are capable of doing. So Mr. Gregoire and I have been in this discussion since I've gotten here, and I presented this to the board as well, we should see a flow through the school, where just because I'm a second grader doesn't mean I can't read at a fourth or fifth grade level. Why am I not providing fourth and fifth grade reading materials for this student and working with them at a fifth grade level? However, I might be at a second grade level in mathematics. Doesn't tend to happen often, because if you're a strong reader, math comes fairly, I wouldn't say easy, but they don't tend to have many problems in mathematics. But my point is, if I was struggling in math, I might be back at a second grade level working in math to make sure I bringing my math abilities up. Students should be able to flow through our system compared to just.
So how would you deal with that?
Still. For me, one of the best ways to do it is to look at your staff as a full staff compared to a grade level teacher. And be able to look at students based on their abilities and direct your staff to work with students based on their abilities compared to just, I have my second grade classroom, this is what I'm working on. However, I might have another teacher who has, in their class, say a third grade class, has students working at a second grade level, and my second grade teacher has students working at a third grade level. Why aren't they grouping them and looking at the students as a whole, and not looking at a second grade classroom teacher or a third grade classroom teacher? They are our teachers, and we should use them based on their skills and their approaches to instructing students differently. That's how I feel we should really move things forward. So you're sort of breaking down the barriers of grade level, and you stay within that grade level, and everything happens in that one classroom. Instead, there should be a flow through the building and utilizing our staff appropriately to address the students' needs at their level. To me, that's the ideal situation. And that's what I'm having discussions with Mr. Gregoire and Mr. Byrne regarding how do we make that happen here at the Paul School. Does that answer your question?
It does, somewhat. I'm just concerned of an A student being so, trying to word this the right way, understanding so much that they get just lazy and they get a B, even though they know all the stuff, and they're an A student, but they don't care because they know it, but they just get lazy of doing it all. So they don't get the full knock they should be getting. And my what I'm asking you basically is, how do we know? And I know that's the hard side of it, and I know it's actually a lot of work for one class to monitor, lagging back kids and kids that excel. But how do we know that that all can happen in one classroom, or how it is happening? And I know you explained some of it, but it's a hard thing to really to watch, you know, in every single classroom.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do. However, a skilled teacher can do it. And the way that works is if all that happens in one classroom, it's what's known as stations teaching, where in one classroom you know the different abilities of your students. And you might have 3 students that are working with a very accelerated ability. You might have a few students that are, you know, really trying to catch up based on their grade level expectations. And you group them accordingly within your classroom. However, you're delivering the same lesson, but you teach it differently, and you utilize the adults that are in the building to work with individual groups within the one classroom. The common term thrown around is differentiated instruction. We've heard it for years. It's really sort of morphing into this open up, you know, in my opinion, it should morph into a more open, you know, break down the walls and utilize your staff as a whole, just as I was talking about earlier. That's a shift, and that's a big shift for many teachers as well as many school systems to move in that direction, because, you know, it's hard to understand, it's hard to communicate, because it's what I consider different than traditional education, which is sit in the rows, stand up, deliver the instruction, and hope everyone gets it. Now it's a matter of let's find out where each individual student is based on their abilities and drive the instruction on their needs and work on their strengths. So that's where we're moving right now.
Okay.
And it takes a lot of observation as to how that works. It takes a lot of professional development to make sure that it's working well, and teachers are given the skills necessary to do that. Some come naturally, some need to learn it, but it's the direction we're moving. It really is.
Thank you.
And I'd like to open up the conversation about really providing opportunities beyond Paul's school for our students, particularly our 8th graders going into high school, making sure they're successful and being able to go into the accelerated classes as a freshman. So I'm looking at that as well. So it's all on the plate,
Okay.
and we're tackling it.
At what point, if the student's lagging behind, or they're going forward, at what point do you guys communicate to the parents? At what point do you start getting them involved if you see there's a problem?
It should happen immediately.
You don't let it, go on?
Mhm.
Okay.
Would you like to speak to that, Mr. Gregoire?
You know,
You had your hand.
we talked about, no, just scratch my head, but I can certainly.
Oh,
go
okay.
to it. As we talked about in the last board meeting, this constant assessment going on. Why are you pointing it out when the kid walks in? You're assessing which student knows their name. That's an assessment, and so we're doing constant assessment. Today we had 3 data meetings, and we go through the data to look at where the students are in their progress. Have they met the benchmarks that we have set forward to them? And if they don't, we're asking the question, why is this kid? We look at kids who are in what we call tier 1, kids who are getting it pretty quickly in the regular classroom. And we'll see kids, say the benchmark was 129, and the kid made 132 last time. He was far beyond the benchmark, but this time he's 117. The question is why? And we look at a lot of different things. What's happening? Are we seeing behavior? Are we seeing things that are happening in the house? Are we seeing the child struggling in other areas? We're asking those questions, and if we tend to see it more than once, we're going to go to the family and ask. We want to bring people in. And the same thing with kids who are accelerating. We've got a couple of kids here. We had to take them out of, the regular 8th grade math class that we're doing and put them in what we call VLAX, so that they're doing geometry, because we don't offer geometry in the school. It's far beyond what we've normally done. Or we're taking a child who's, we had talked with parents about that, or a child who's in 1st grade and they're reading far beyond. Mr. Tercey's talking about differentiation, but far beyond what we can even differentiate. We move them up into 2nd grade, and they go back to 1st grade for their math. And we're looking at trying to develop scheduling. It's difficult in the system we have right now, but we're looking at developing scheduling in this coming year to make sure we have a better ability to do that.
Well, I could just testify as a witness to, what Jerry's saying. It has happened. They have helped out kids that are at a certain level, and I think the idea of being beyond and then getting lazy or bored, that would be the only thing in my observation that is a real issue, you know. But I have witnessed the administration give the tools to the kids that are excelling.
I'm sorry.
You, and I don't want to quote you, but you stated as opposed to traditional education.
Mhm.
From what I see, and it's disturbing that a lot of kids in this day and age, if they lose electricity, they're in deep trouble.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of scratching my head as to what you meant as to oppose to traditional education.
For me, that comment, as I think I said it afterward as well, is that if you walked into a classroom and you saw all students sitting in a row, and the teacher was at the front of the classroom, and a textbook was open, and that was a 45-minute lesson, and that happened every day that a student walked into class. To me, that's where the shift has to happen, and that's happened over the past 20, 30 years that shift has been happening. So it's not just a teacher dictating information from the front of the classroom to a rows of students. To me, that's what I'm considering traditional education, where now it's a much more open forum where the teacher becomes the facilitator of the learning based on student interest. That's the direction education is going. I agree with you. If we lost electricity, not only students, but everybody tends to have a problem. And I strongly feel that we should be teaching the skills necessary for everyday life without electricity. I think also, people should know how to brew a cup of coffee if they needed to off of a wood fire and a pot and water and some coffee grains. You think about it, we lose electricity and Dunkin' Donuts goes down, the whole place goes chaotic.
We're all cranky.
Exactly, that's a problem.
But what about things like American history? I think kids should know how this country came about.
Absolutely, and that should be in the standards, and that should be taught throughout.
You have kids now that they cannot read cursive writing.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, these kids in this generation cannot read our Constitution or our Declaration of Independence.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a shame.
That's why they put it in this form.
But I have a problem with what you just stated, or a part of it, and that being a facilitator. So now we're going to use facilitators, because when you use a facilitator, you don't need really an affirmative action. You can get to things without affirmative actions by just using a consensus. And that's steering the people, and I apologize, but staring people like sheep and to just follow along. I have a problem with facilitator.
And I see it as completely opposite of that. The way I use the term facilitator is, as a teacher, a student would walk up to me and say, Mr. Tercey, I'm interested in being a master welder. Okay, that's what I want to do, that's what I'm going to do. I would design my lesson around that student's interest, knowing that's what he wants to do or she wants to do. And I would facilitate the learning, saying, you should check out this resource about welding. You should talk to this person that's a welder in the community. You should do all of this. And if you're struggling on the information, I step in and I help with that. So that's facilitating the learning based on a student interest. There's always the lesson that's involved. However, you also have to be the one that facilitates providing the resource and directing that student towards success based on their interests. That's a facilitator, and that builds independence, in my opinion, compared to following along the same lesson with every student in the class. That's a follower compared to being independent, and we should be facilitating that independence and that independent learning based on interests.
But from what I'm hearing is that whatever child's need there is, we're going to come up with an individualized curriculum for each or any and all students. How can you possibly have one teacher come up with 25 or 30 curriculums for those kids without needing additional resources?
Okay, the curriculum would be the same for every student. It's how the lesson might change based
Okay,
on that curriculum.
Maybe I used the wrong,
Okay.
30 different, how do you come up, how do you have, if you have 30 kids in a classroom, how do you have 30 different lessons by one individual without needing additional resources?
Okay, so you have, your curriculum is set, the teacher teaches the lesson based on the curriculum, but then you break out the lesson, the one lesson, based on student interest. So if I'm teaching about rocks, for example, an earth science lesson, all students need to know the classification of rocks. It's a standard that we know has been taught for years. That's not going away, sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic rocks. However, you might have a student, so you teach that lesson as a teacher, but then you have a student that's more interested in life sciences. They're more interested in what type of animals live in caves, for example. So you tie your lesson into, well, what type of rock makes great caves? Limestone. So you start having them researching limestone. And then they present that to the class as a sedimentary rock. So you teach the curriculum, you drive the one lesson, and then you differentiate within the class based on student interests. And the student next to me might have the same interests. We're grouped together. Someone might have a completely different interest than anyone else in this. They would do their own thing. There might be 5 other students that have the same interest based on the same lesson. They're grouped together and they work together. So it's not 30 different lessons. It's not 30 different curricula. It's how you address the student interests. That's what changes, and that's difficult. It's difficult, but it's rewarding. And that goes back to the point, how do you stop students from being bored? You drive your lesson based on their interests.
Drive them and engage them.
And then they're engaged, they're not bored, it reduces behavioral issues, and they own it, they're invested in it, and they show that they're successful based on that interest. That's what we're moving toward. It's building independence based on their interests.
That's what we hope to see.
Yeah. Anybody else?
Not at this time.
Right. Because
Another healthy discussion.
I'm tempted to move something up, but I'll wait for it because it kind of ties into what we're talking now, but.
You done with new business?
Administration, Director of Student Service Report. Anybody got questions for Ann?
Are you gonna ask those questions about the email that you sent me? About the changes in the professional development?
Well, I did touch on it, but.
Oh,
I don't know what's in the best interest of us.
I think it's gonna be an ongoing discussion.
Can we ask for copies of that, of this? And like what that,
Yeah, absolutely.
okay.
Bonnie's was asking about the professional development.
Okay. On the
Was
student
like-
service report?
No, actually, I,
This was just a training that special ed staff took part in.
actually, in more regards to the latest, professional development. 'Cause received an email, about the last professional development committee meeting in the, student learning outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
I guess it's really, we're not receiving any information. The board has no input, and I think that's what a lot of the board members are struggling with.
Okay.
That we're not receiving enough information, and there's no board input. We're gonna be given something, and that's it. That's the end product. Wouldn't it be more efficient if you have board input from the beginning? And not trying to be negative here, but I do see, from what I have seen, and once again, this is basically all on my own, because we're not being given any information on standards or curriculum. And now you have the Professional Development Committee, they're the ones who are making the decisions on student learning outcomes. Why doesn't the board have any say in student learning outcomes? And I think that's what I'm struggling with, that, and I believe that some of the other board members are struggling, that there is no more board input. That the decision making is being transferred from the board to the administration. And I have a real problem with that.
May I?
Please.
I would have a problem with that as well. However, you do have board representation on that committee that can speak out at any time. And that board member can also bring information back to the board. And you got to keep in mind, that representative of the board is the one that speaks for the board.
Well,
And that you have quite a, as I said earlier, a large committee that's making a decision together, and it's not an administrative decision, it's a committee decision in which the board is represented. As for the student learning objectives, that's just a descriptor as to how to develop them in the professional growth plan. It doesn't lay out what the specific expectations are for those objectives. It's just it's a format for putting together those student learning objectives. So I guess I'm questioning why you feel the board doesn't have input in those decisions when there's a representative that sits on that committee.
Well, because I'll tell you, Mr. Tercey, why. I walked into the last professional development committee meeting, and I was totally in shock that we spent the entire meeting discussing the verbiage of data mining. How is data mining our children benefiting their education? I don't buy it. It's top down, it's coming down. They're teaching people, they want students, children, they want all of us to be followers. To follow along, do what you're told, follow along, don't upset the apple cart. I was told, I could not believe that the entire meeting was derived on the verbiage of how our children's educational and medical records are going to be data mined under the standards that are being implemented as we speak.
Did you express that concern in your group? Because I was at the same meeting,
No, I was just,
because I didn't hear that term being
Well,
thrown
you-
around at all.
I don't believe you had an opportunity. Did you go to the last meeting last Friday, or because it was moved? Did you
were
drive
referring to the
down?
meeting before,
the meeting before.
correct?
But last Friday, the meeting
But-
was moved.
But see, this is the problem, we're not being given the information. I walk into a meeting, I have no idea what's gonna be discussed. So number one, how can I be prepared? Number two, I'm sitting there and they're talking about how they're gonna data mine our children. I am totally against data mining anyone, especially minor children and their educational and medical records. As far as I'm concerned, it will not be done.
And all the information prior to the meeting is sent out to all committee members. Everyone gets that information, including the board representatives. So there's plenty of information that is being sent out to the committee before the meeting occurs. And there isn't anywhere in the professional growth plan that you'll see wording around data mining. So how that discussion happened in your group, I'm not sure. I wasn't part of your group because we were broken out into groups.
Right. But you're not
but it's
saying that
not
it didn't happen.
I can't say it did or it didn't because I wasn't part of that
Okay,
group.
because-
So I'm not saying it didn't because that would be saying that you.
Right, because, I mean, it was
Calling
the
you a liar,
entire
which I'm
meeting.
not.
Right.
However, if you feel you need more information, I'm not sure what more information you need because you're getting everything that the committee receives.
Well, like I said, when I walked in there and it was the first time I ever heard anything about data mining.
And
From as far, coming from this school district. And I was appalled
And-
at what was discussed. Go ahead.
And I agree with you, that's not a discussion to be had at the Professional Growth Plan Committee meeting, it's about the plan itself. And whoever brought that up, it's out of context, in my opinion, and that would have been something I would have expressed as part of that group.
But it's all part of the standards. This is what
We've
the
had this
entire
discussion, Mr.
meeting was discussed. The verbiage on how they're going to data mine our children. And I was appalled. And I just could not believe what I was hearing. Because I have a real problem with data mining children. In this school district, or any school district, but especially this one. Go ahead, Mike.
I guess just from information, because I want information, is there a way to get the past professional development, or how is that issued? Like, explain to me, like, if you have professional development for a year coming forward, like, how do you learn the nitty-gritty of what's been going on and, like, what's been introduced, what hasn't been introduced, that can give me a little bit of background on what it is? Do you understand what I'm asking for? Because it's like, I have a file for professional development, but it usually has photocopies of the reports given by you, highlighted with like what the professional development was for some different group of whatever, but I don't have like the actual plan.
Okay, so, as you said, the professional development that happens in the district, usually in the curriculum coordinator's report, principal's report as well as the student services report. As for the specifics around the professional development, are you looking for like links to a type of professional development that's being offered? Let's say they're doing a workshop on,
I guess
doing I'm just not sure, and we could
It's
provide
like-
you the professional growth plan.
that's, yeah,
Yeah, that's fine.
okay.
I can definitely, I'm surprised that the board didn't get it last year when it was approved, because it hasn't been changed at this point. We're looking at making amendments.
We've had a lot of
Well, I'll make sure you get a copy of the current professional growth
I would love
plan.
that, and maybe like what you've done so far this year, what else you have planned for the rest of the year, just to give me a baseline of, what the goals are for the year. That would be, I would like that information. And if you don't have what else is moving forward because they haven't been planned yet, then I understand that. But I just think it would be nice to have the plan.
I can do that.
That's wonderful, thank you.
You all set?
So was this,
We-
on your student services report, was this special ed training, was it a success?
Yes, I actually asked the staff to participate in the training. The Department of Ed was offering one read and write goal software to any school that got trained in how to use read and write goal. And Wakefield hadn't done that. It was offered last year and throughout the summer and then again this fall, so I asked them to participate. Read and write goal will allow our students with disabilities that have difficult times reading or writing to access material through speech. I don't know that much about it because I didn't participate in the training. What I know is that it will be a very good accommodation for our students with reading and writing disabilities. So we have one software that's being used, I believe, right now, and it's accessible to all the students.
Wonderful. That's great.
Anybody else? Any questions, Brian? Thank you, Ed. Principals report. Jerry,
You got my report?
any good questions for Jerry? Well,
Destination Imagination, there's no, it says Saturday, March 2014. What date was
I'm
it?
sorry, it was this past Saturday.
Okay, this past Saturday.
Yeah, not this past, I did one before.
Saturday 15th, yeah.
15th. And then, can I share with you the total amount raised for the 50/50 raffle?
Yeah.
$1,065.
That's great.
They did a great job up there, and a big thanks to Sunny Bill for opening up their doors for us.
Yeah, that was just on the 50/50 raffle alone, so.
And on Dr. Seuss and the Heroes, you had said that Mr. Surratt is coming Monday.
Yeah, we had to postpone Mr. Surratt from our last snowstorm. He's coming Monday, so let's hope that
24th.
let's hope that Monday we have
No
a
snow.
we have clear skies and we don't have to listen to Mr. Tercey first thing in the morning.
And you said 9:30?
Yes.
Yes. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question on the back page?
Oh, you certainly can.
Okay, here I go.
Oh, yeah.
Me and my wheeling and dealing and all of this crazy good
Yeah.
stuff. The computers.
Yeah.
Are those not even sellable to maybe a child who doesn't have a computer?
They certainly are. You know, as I said in the top paragraph, in accordance with the policy, there are several ways to dispose of. We can sell them, we can donate them, we can throw them away. There's several different ways. And what I would want to look at, get rid of the junk that we can't get, that's not usable.
Well, what you consider junk and what I consider junk are two totally different things. Because
Sure.
I'm thinking scrap metal and those plastic seats make great sleds in the wintertime.
Okay.
So what you think is junk and what I think is junk is two totally
And
different
also
things.
moving it in a timely fashion. so
Mr.
we're not
Tercey, don't
holding on
shake
for
your head
long.
at me.
No,
That
I'm
could
just
be a new
thinking
gym technique.
I'm
would
just
do the
looking
same
at, you know,
thing.
buckets with rusted wheels that won't turn, and, you know, and trying to move the stuff in a way that
But
someone
that's
can use.
scrap metal.
If
I
it-
know,
if it's-
you're
if it's a
looking at me
metal
like I'm
bucket,
crazy,
if
but
it's a
it's-
metal bucket.
It's scrap metal, then some youth in the town, and I know, I'm looking at one boy that would, and my boy that would, if he was brought that, overhead projector. Sellable item. Women who do murals on walls and crafts and things like that will put a design on that and put it on a wall and paint a mural.
Campground.
Or a campground would use it. Or actually, I've asked to borrow one before and told no because it was school property, so I would probably buy one. And a climbing rope. Are we not offering climbing in gym anymore?
It's an outdated climbing rope. It's one that we have to move.
It's fraying.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
Good tug of war rope?
As long as you're on the right side of the snap.
Well, I mean, is it something Parks and Rec could use for agility for one of their sports
Possibly we could
programs?
use it for something, correct. Yep.
Okay. See, there's always a use for something.
And being described as old doesn't mean it's not usable.
And the phone system. Another company just starting out might purchase that.
Sure.
So,
And that's what the policy is. That, you know, how do we get rid of what's usable still? the phone system, certainly, we look at wanting to make sure that finds a place where somebody can use it. We can't use it here, but that's what that's what policy DN goes into.
And that policy leaves it to the discretion of the administration?
Correct.
So what it comes down to is the board approving that these items no longer exist in the building. So it might not necessarily be throwing them out, but there's other means of making sure they're not in the building.
I don't wanna see anything get thrown out. It's gotta be sellable, usable, recyclable somehow.
So could we maybe just remove discarded? And utilized in other areas, or maybe is that the problem you're having, that it's gonna be discarded?
I don't want it thrown in a dumpster and thrown away like a lot of the stuff from the cellar was. That broke my heart. The vintage desk, the foreign language books, the leftover paper, all of that stuff could have been, I mean, you could have done paper mache with the paper. You could have sold the desks. I mean, there was so much that could have been done, and it broke my heart to see it all thrown out in a dumpster. I just don't want that to happen again. And the profit that comes from this can go back to the school into another program that you need.
Something that I've experienced in the past is when you have a large number of items that you might want to get rid of, is having a community yard sale. Something that maybe could work with the PTA
Or
about.
8th grade.
Or 8th
They
grade.
need money.
So, it'd be items that could go back to the community. But that's also an option. So what Mr. Gregoire is requesting here is that we remove these items from the current facility in some way. And if that's a yard sale or scrap metal, then that's what it will be. But the board needs to approve that. If not, it stays in the building.
The shed.
Have you,
Or in the shed.
It's in the shed because we got rid of the storage containers. What we actually did, we had the storage container that we were paying.
You don't have the computers in the shed, do you?
No, but a lot.
Okay, because I was gonna say that would probably damage the use of
No,
them.
But we moved a lot of the bulk items, like the desks, and then we wanted to move we had the new sheds, or the sheds we got from the property across the street, and we emptied out the storage container, eliminated $100 a month.
Yep.
From that part of our budget, and then looking what do we do with all this material now?
would you include that list on one of the Wakefield Weeklies, one of the things that you send home with the kids, saying any parents interested in buying this stuff? Submit a bid?
I mean, I think we also need to figure where the funds go. I'm not sure if they go back to the general fund or if they go back into the school, or what happens with those monies.
Even if you say you donate it to these items are given to the 8th
Sure.
grade to have a yard sale, and have them put them in the gym and have a yard sale one day. Bake sale, yard sale, anything that's not bought. Because I know parents can't necessarily afford an iBook,
Right.
but there's no reason that they wouldn't take a used one.
And that's, again, that is what the policy goes into, that we can donate items, we can sell them, we can throw them away. And those are all options. I'm just telling you, Bonnie, what's in the policy.
I know, it breaks my heart, don't throw it away.
Well, then maybe a policy should come before the policy committee in the near future. There you go.
So we move to, you need a motion to eliminate it from the,
Just so that we can remove the items in accordance with the policy,
Other than,
knowing what the will of the board is.
okay. I'll make that motion.
I'll second it. Motion second, all in favor? Aye.
I have one more item before we wrap up. And, I flipped on the overhead projector, and you saw the iTunes up there. If you were watching from TV, you were facing that direction when we were getting ready to move into the administration. So I apologize for that.
I'm scared.
Sorry, Mr. Burns.
Wow, Bob, stop it.
There you go, Mr. Burns. This is
There we
a video from one of our students. I had to laugh. Mr. Brown, you said we want more history. If I can pull this. Come on, iPad. There goes my technology.
One of those items headed for the ad sale.
I don't know about that. I want to know.
Great wire. It's the iPad, you know.
Let me see. One of our second grade students who learned the Gettysburg Address by heart and is on a website called learntheaddress.org. I'm just going to share with you the video of Asher Proul, one of our second graders, reciting. I can take control. Is it library, Mr. Byrne?
It's library.
I talked with Mr. Proul, Asher's dad, today, just to make sure he was okay with this. And actually, Asher will be at our assembly, our PBIS assembly, on Friday, reciting this to the class. For some reason, it's not mirroring, Mr. Byrne. And do what?
Operator error?
What's that? Operator area, is that what you said? Thank you, Mr. Byrne. So, young Asher is going to recite this in front of the entire school Friday morning when we do our PBIS workshop
It
with the
says it
kids.
is, so once you play, I think it
You think it
will,
will?
yeah.
Check one. It's not showing up there. Usually we show the whole
I know,
screen.
I know.
Is he gonna be wearing a top hat and a beard?
He is not.
All right.
No, he's all dressed up though. I apologize for the delay.
It is this. Thinking of it.
So it was operator error.
Yeah, it's called you had way too many things on your computer.
There we go. Sorry about that.
Yeah, you had so many apps. Turn aside.
On this continent, a new nation conceived of liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. And we are engaged in a civil war, testing whether that nation or any nation so
Just wanted to share that with you, the dedication that Ashley put into that work. And,
That's
really-
wonderful.
And one of our
Good job.
Yay.
who are really just, really showing off their skills.
That's
Enunciated
awesome.
his
But,
words.
yeah.
I know, he was clear, I like
Thank you.
that.
Mr. Brown, under principal's report, I have something I want to hand out as well. I just want the board to have enrollment as of today in all grades, all school.
Yes, I did.
And I'm going to ask Mr. Gregoire to include the enrollment in each of his principal's reports.
Thank you.
One last thing, I know that discussion had come up about the scholarship question. The scholarship question that has been generated is, write about a challenge that you have faced and how it has helped you grow into a successful student.
What about a challenge?
I think we should ask for that to be due for our second meeting in May, and have an announcement at the first meeting in June.
Has that already been,
It will be distributed.
okay.
It has not been distributed.
Can you just write about a challenge?
Write
you
about a
have-
challenge you have faced and how it has helped you grow into a successful student.
Oh, yeah, I got it. You had that and I didn't?
I just got it. They just passed it over.
I gotta know. That's wonderful, thank you so much.
Certainly.
How are we doing on the residency?
I haven't checked in a while, Mr. Brown, but we were down just, low single digits.
Low single digits? Good.
There's been 409 total enrollment now? I don't know. I'm asking somebody to check my math.
Don't ask me, I don't like calculating.
99, 139.
Sounds about right.
225, 267,
Now, is it appropriate to put the preschool on there too?
309.
That's,
I would love to.
I think we should
We can
incorporate the
include that.
preschool into that. If we're offering it as a program, they should be part of the
Yeah.
numbers.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
409.
409 and there's 12 in preschool?
There are
That was it.
no, there are 14 right now, and we have 2 referrals.
So
we
I'm
have
just
2
gonna,
students with disabilities, 4 typicals, and 2 referrals.
okay,
So
so
right now it's 14.
I'm just gonna add 14.
Yep.
So 423 total.
Everybody all set with Jerry?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
so much for bringing that forward. I would love to see more of that at every single meeting. That would make me so happy.
I've included both January and February's discipline report.
Same bus?
It was, let's see, the events and on which one, January or February?
Oh, probably both.
January. There was actually, in January, there were 2 different buses that were initially.
How do parents react to the suspensions from the buses?
Generally, so generally they're pretty accepting of it. They understand when we talk about the safety of their student as well as the other students. There has been some question about, well, what do we do about getting them there? And we just have that conversation with them that it's a privilege and they need to follow those rules on that bus to keep everyone else safe. And then once we have that conversation, it hasn't been an issue with the same parent if the student is off again.
They're appropriately angry.
Well, at who?
I think
Some-
appropriately,
yeah.
I'll say appropriately, because in my
Sometimes
view,
it's
it's appropriate.
inconvenient, but sometimes if it's inconvenient, that child learns a lesson because the parents are a little upset. And if they don't necessarily learn the lesson by being disciplined from being kicked off the bus, they're gonna know that mom and dad are a little upset that they had to go into work an hour late and get out an hour early because of the poor choices that were made.
Yeah. You hope.
Anything out of the ordinary going on that needs to be addressed?
No, everything's been going very well. If you look at the comparison from last year to this year, it's still continuing to be a downward trend. We had a spike in 1 month right before Christmas, as I talked about, but then the last 2 months have been a downward trend. And if you look, I was really happy with February's and the fact that we actually only had one repeat offender, and it was only that student was only in there twice. So.
Overall, the discipline in the building is pretty good. It runs pretty well.
And if you look at February, where it says repeat offenders, it's up to 6 because we've been in for 6 months. And when we look at repeat, we're looking at getting there more than once a month. You know, or on average, it's been more than once a month. And that number's coming down to where right now we're only looking at like 5 students that are averaging that number, getting up there. So it's working.
Is the board stretcher in that list of things to get rid of?
The what?
When the louder you scream, the tighter they crank it.
Oh, you want it?
Of course I do. Reminds me of the old days, good old days. What are you on to now, Mr. Brown?
Just looking at the discipline report. 10 in the 8th grade in January.
That 10, if you wanted to see the outlier, that was the bus. That was the bus, and that's also why the suspensions in the bus were higher, because in 8th grade, their second warning is a bus suspension, because at that point, they need to know, because when they're taking that longer bus ride to Spalding, it just can't be tolerated. It's too long of a ride. It's too much of an issue at that age level. And you had asked about, you know, the parent response when it comes to that high school level. If they haven't seen what it might look like by the time they get to the high school, they're really going to be upset when when they have to take them to Rochester. So.
All right, thanks, Nate.
You're welcome.
Are they all set with that? Mr. Tercey, you want to take care of board questions from last meeting?
Actually, Mr. D'Agostino put together these questions. They came out, majority of them came out during the financial report at the last meeting. So I think I'll have Mr. D'Agostino address them. They're pretty straightforward as to what the questions were. I wrote them down in that meeting, and Mr. D'Agostino went ahead and tackled them.
Anybody, I don't know if we need to, anybody have any questions on them?
The history of the land purchase on Rhines Road. This good information. I don't know if it indicates that I was hoping to sell that parcel, because that's not really anything I thought about. What I'm thinking about is a timber harvest. So
We asked for that information,
Yes,
didn't we?
during the development of the warrant articles.
right. So it is 54 acres, is that correct? I think it is 54 acres, or 52, 54 acres.
Now, these numbers are just estimates that the realtor gave you. You really can't be certain until he's actually able to walk the land.
Well, again, it never crossed my mind to sell the property, what I was thinking about was a timber harvest. There's marketable timber there. And I guess the question that I would now ask is, the process, would we need to have a designated fund line to put the monies into if the school board decided to have a timber harvest? Would that be something that is non-existent now and we'd have to create a line and have it voted on through the process, or
Well, we'll go into other income on the general fund.
other income?
Well, would that have to go back to the taxpayers, Andrew?
Well, it would go back to the taxpayers because there would be other income on the expense report, which would reduce your expense. So at the end of the year, you would have that much more money going back to the taxpayer. Unless you budgeted that money, it can't be spent because it's on anticipated income. So it'll go into that line, and it wouldn't be spent, so it would be going back to taxpayers in the year-end fund balance.
So if there was an intent to utilize that income for a specific purpose, that specific purpose would have to be laid out in a warrant article and presented to the voters for their approval. Is that the process?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask how we are? Big difference in Kelly Blue Book value on the van, by the way. Just
The
saying.
value of that van went from
Yep.
$1,000 to the $4,800, so it's,
There's a
you look
big, big difference.
yeah. So
Just
we-
gotta know where to look, Andrew.
We're going, actually today, Tim is posting it for $5,000, and we'll see if we get any,
Perfect. Where is it, if someone wants to see it?
it's gonna, well, he's gonna, I told him to put it on free sites because we don't want to pay for advertising. He's gonna go
Okay.
on Craigslist, and he said something about Uncle Henry's or
Yep,
something.
Craigslist, Uncle Henry's, sure.
So those are some of the places he's looking into posting it,
Okay. And he's gonna take care of the sale?
yeah.
Great.
Of course, any offer we get will be brought to the board for your approval to accept.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Let's hope it's more than $800.
Everybody all set? SAU 64. Mr. Tercey.
Mr. Chair, I have several items I'd like to make the board aware of, and I have a few handouts too for some future discussions. Been very busy, I must say, in a good way. We had the Read Across America Week in Wakefield as well as in Milton, and I had an opportunity on March 7th to come into Paul's school and read to a first grade class and a fifth grade class on that Friday. It was great to get that opportunity to come in and read to the students. I look forward to doing that again at some point. I also want to inform the board of some of the conversations that have been happening among superintendents around the state. The superintendents meet with the Commissioner of Education once a month. In our Southeasters region, we call it the Southeasters Superintendents Meeting. That happens once a month as well. That happens throughout the state. The superintendents are by region, get together to talk about specific topics, and then all the superintendents come together with the commissioner to have the commissioners meeting. So some of the things that are being discussed right now is potential changes sometime down the road around the state accountability system, which currently is our kneecap test. Obviously, people are well aware that in the spring of 2015, the Smarter Balanced Assessment will replace our kneecap test. However, that's being considered a pilot at this point because it hasn't been administered. And there are a few districts throughout the state that are piloting a different assessment for their state assessments, particularly in the upper middle school grades into high school. Londonderry, for example, is piloting the what's known as the Ready Step test for grades 7, 8, and 9. That is really a preliminary test that leads into the PSAT, which would be administered for 10th graders, and then the SAT would be administered for 11th graders. And they're looking at that as their standardized test for the accountability for the state assessment. And one of the intents behind that switch is to really provide some ownership of taking that test, because the student that takes an SAT, it actually has an implication on whether they get into colleges or not. So, and most students that are going into a 4-year or 2-year school would take the SAT, and that would become part of their application materials in order to do that. Also, both the Ready Step, the PSAT, and the SAT really assess what's being thrown around right now, and it's common verbiage is college and career ready expectations for students as they're leaving our schools and going into either a career or a college. So there are discussions around potentially looking at a different assessment throughout the system in some school systems throughout the state. So I wanted to make sure the board was aware that those conversations are going on right now. One thing that I'm happy to say is that one of the recommendations that was made, particularly by the deputy commissioner with some of the superintendents, was that we should make sure that we have a local assessment in place that demonstrate that in order for us to demonstrate student growth. And we're fortunate next year to bring back NWEA testing as a local assessment. So regardless of what happens with the pilots in the next couple of years, we'll still have a local assessment that we can use to assess whether our students are growing on an individual basis and also report that out if necessary. So we're actually being proactive in the sense of bringing that in as of next year. So that's one of the major topics that's being discussed. At our Southeasters meeting, we actually had an opportunity to speak with presidents from the college and university system as well as the community college system of New Hampshire in hopes of building partnerships in order to provide opportunities all the way down to kindergarten and develop career paths and college paths for our students in the early grades, and particularly really working with our middle school and high school students to develop that academic path for them to be successful going into a college or a university. So that's a conversation where we're getting together with the presidents of the colleges and universities and the community college system. And I've actually experienced that in the past. Those partnerships are very successful, particularly for our high school students. I'd like the thought that the discussion is now moving more toward, I should say, feeding into our middle school and our intermediate grades and our primary grades of really utilizing those systems, because we have a strong system in New Hampshire for universities and community colleges. So that's some topics that are being discussed right now among the superintendents in the state. I also want to mention that I take as much time as I possibly can to be in the schools. For me, it's an opportunity to really speak with the teachers, the paraprofessionals, the kitchen staff, the custodians, but most importantly to me is having connections with students and really getting their feedback about how things are going, how their day is going. I often ask them, if you could do something different, what would you like to do, and things like that. Just talking about maybe a lesson in a class, or I might walk through the hall and see a student that's standing outside of the classroom door because they might have been sent out of class. I talk to them and find out what's going on so that I have a connection, in hopes that they don't ever make it in front of the superintendent for discipline reasons. So I am spending as much time as I possibly can in the schools, and it's really the most rewarding part of my job. I want to say that on March 14th, last Friday, we had our teacher workshop day, and that was an SAU 64-wide teacher workshop day, and we had the entire staff at Newton Middle High School, and it was an opportunity it was the first opportunity throughout the year to get together to work as an SAU on curriculum development, moving forward on the things that we've been talking about here, and really designing that, in this case, since it's SAU 64, K-12 aligned curriculum. And it's an opportunity for staff in Wakefield to communicate with staff members in Milton, particularly at specific grade levels, to bounce ideas off of each other, because they actually, and from feedback from staff, they enjoy that opportunity to be able to collaborate with their colleagues in another district. We will be able to have that opportunity more often next year because we have aligned the calendars to provide the same professional development days in both districts so that our teachers can get together more often and have those conversations, because you can really utilize resources when you have more of them and you're talking about common lessons and units and standards. So that was a very successful day, and we've gotten great feedback from the staff regarding that. An update on the calendar. At the last board meeting, I brought the calendar to you for approval, and you did approve it. I do want to say that after that happened, I had discovered that the teacher salary schedule is built on a 187-day calendar, and the calendar was brought to you was at 185 days. So I'll be bringing back a calendar to you that will include an additional two teacher workshop days. I'm in discussion currently with the association to see if we could either put the 2 days at the beginning of the school year, which means we'd have to develop a MOU to start before August 25th, or to put the 2 days at the end of the school year, or to do one at the beginning and one at the end. There isn't any room within the calendar to put in 2 more teacher workshop days.
Maybe we do it President's Day. That would keep Mr. Brown happy. It's just,
But the problem is we can't do, it's so tight, we can't do President's Day because that has to be a student day, because we have to have 180 days in the calendar. So there are only 180 days in the calendar. We don't have any days to play with because of those 10 snow days we have to build in. So there isn't anywhere to do it except at the beginning or at the end.
What's the benefit at the end?
Well, that's the conversation I was having with the union president regarding the same opinion. Why do it at the end? I mean, teachers are ready to get out of here.
Right.
So it could be a split. Regardless, I wanted to make sure the board knew that I'll be bringing a calendar back to you, and there's potential that I'll be bringing an MOU back to you to sign if we have to go before the 25th.
what's MOU mean?
I'm sorry, memorandum of understanding. It's anytime you amend a collective bargaining agreement, you have to develop one of those. Because that's an agreement between the board and the association, so you both have to sign off on it.
If it was an MOA, it'd be a memorandum of agreement.
Agreement, correct.
Could there maybe just be, say, a consensus? I mean, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but I don't think having them at the end of the year is a lot of help. So maybe, if you do it by consensus that the board would like to try to help Mr. Tercey along, that they be done at the beginning of the year.
I'd say.
I agree.
Is the board open to a split?
We'd prefer at the beginning of the year. And I see no purpose of doing,
Okay.
people want to get out of here. At the end of the year, you're talking, what, June 25th or somewhere? I mean, people want to get out of here. So, to have a day, a workshop for an entire day, I don't,
I agree, and I can communicate that in our
and then
discussion.
you have that 2-month, period in between. I don't see how it's prudent to do it at the end of the school year.
I can convey that message.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I want to let the board know that on April 29th, the New Hampshire School Boards Association is having a new board member orientation workshop. There's one being offered in Concord and one offered in Whitefield. The one in Concord is actually both of them are on the 29th. And I have registration forms with me tonight if you'd like it. I'm interested in attending to hear what they have to say. I also feel that board members that have been on the board for a while or a couple years, it's a good opportunity to sort of refresh board member roles and responsibilities. So it's something you might want to think about. If you'd like to register, I said I have the forms here, and you just have to let me know. We could do it for you too out of the SAU office. Just have to let me know which location you'd like to go. Okay?
A field trip to Whitefield. There you
I would
go.
like to attend
beautiful
Concord,
up there.
please.
Concord, please.
Is that what we did last time?
Yep.
How, what's the travel distance difference? Is Whitefield closer?
No. It's not, it's much further.
What's
Do we
the
get
date
to have,
The 29th of
April
April?
29th.
April 29th.
Is that an evening session?
Is that
Yes.
Wednesday?
will Andrew pay for our hotel room?
Can we stay at the Hyatt?
Campground on Route 4.
Bonnie's driving. I don't know.
Hey, listen now.
I'm sorry, the 29th is in Concord,
Yep.
and May 1st is in Whitefield, so if you can't make the 29th,
And what time is it on the 29th?
5 PM.
And what day is that?
The 29th, is it Tuesday?
Involves numbers, right?
Hmm?
Involves numbers.
You're driving.
Whitefield's the
drive.
same,
Yeah, yeah,
same time.
I'll drive.
April 29th,
We meet at
Tuesday.
Lino's.
So, who, I'm hearing, would you like for me to have you folks registered?
I'm
Who would
going.
like to go?
I'm going to Whitefield without these guys.
Okay. So Bonnie,
Yes, please.
Norma,
Please.
anyone else? Bob?
I'll conform and I'll go with them.
That was 5 o'clock?
Mm-hmm. You coming too?
Yeah.
We're all in.
All for Concord.
Yes, please.
All right.
No, that was all for Whitefield, right?
Well, then you're driving yourself.
Might want to stay. It's beautiful up there. I also want to let you know on May 14th, the New Hampshire School Board Association is offering a superintendent evaluation workshop. So if you're looking for a workshop to hear about different evaluation tools and the process for evaluating superintendents, that's also being offered. I believe that's at the local government center.
Do you have sign-up sheets for that too?
I do not.
Probably the SBA will send us an email on it, probably.
Yes, the reason why I don't is because they haven't come out yet.
Okay.
But is everyone getting those emails?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. I also want to give you an update on the modular unit. I sent all of you an email the other evening. RPF Environmental did come out today and took some samples. And we're looking, I know that they've been asked to rush those results. Also, a contractor has come out to see the reason for the leak, and it seems to be backing up behind the drip edge and running along the roof joist and down the wall. So currently, there aren't any students in the modular. Mr. Gregoire acted immediately on that prior to us getting somebody in there to determine the extent of the mold situation that we had seen when we had opened up the sheetrock and looked inside. So it's being tested for both air quality as well as testing the mold that they had found on the interior of the wall. And I'll keep the board posted as we move forward.
Which modular is that? Is it the one facing the one going down the side of the building?
It's the one facing the
road?
It's where the
front one?
It's where the 4th grade is located. Yes.
Because I've noticed that roof is a little in need of repair.
And I believe that roof replacement was part of the initial phase of the roof replacement, so we take care of that as well.
I brought it up over the past couple of years, so it does need to be attended to.
Yep. And I was very happy to hear that Mr. Gregoire and Mr. Williams acted immediately on it, and so
Thank you.
it's being taken care of. And when I found out, I let you folks know, and I'll make sure I'll keep you posted as we find out the results of the testing.
And I'm sure I haven't been able to see the roof on the one that runs down the side of the building, but I'm sure if the roof on the front modular is in need of attention, I'm sure the other one is also.
Just to clear up, the module that is having the wall issue is the one that runs along the dirt road, not the one that faces
Tail away.
It's the one that's on the other side,
Oh,
right?
so it's facing
It's
the.
running down
It's running
the
alongside
side of
the
building.
entrance of the ramp, yes.
Right.
grant.
So both roofs should be checked, basically.
Absolutely, because the one on the front is rough. And I've brought that up in the last couple of years, so.
Well, in
That's
Mr.
preschool, the
Fulkerson's,
one that's not.
Mr.
in question.
Adams' breakdown of what needs to be done first, those were both on the first year, right?
Well, we've been doing the roof over the last few years,
Oh, yeah.
sections.
Yep,
So
okay.
I had requested that be looked at because you can see from the modular that faces tail away that the roof is,
Thank you.
What's being passed around right now is I actually put this together today. You're looking at your high school enrollment projections for 2014-15, and I also projected it out for 15 and 16. This is based on our conversation last night with the Rochester School District Area Agreement Subcommittee meeting. So I wanted everyone to see, and again, I want to emphasize these are projected numbers. They can fluctuate, however, give us a good sense as to where we are. These are the students that are attending public schools outside of Spalding. So you'll see in Spalding for 14-15, what we're projecting is a total of 178 students. In Kingswood, 20, and at Lakeside Academy, 1, which gives us a total of 199 students next year that we'll have in high schools. Based on our 10% area agreement, that gives us an opportunity to send 20 students to other schools, and you can see that we're at that right now as a projection. So even if they were to, or if the boards were to agree to make any changes to the area agreement, it will not go into effect until 15 and 16. So the 4 students that are on the waiting list for grade 9 currently, unless a student decides to leave Kingswood or a student moves, we don't have any wiggle room at all for additional students because we're right at the 10%. So I wanted to make sure the board was aware of that. The request was for the subcommittee to go back to the full board in Rochester and request 15%. If that was to change, that would be 30 students. However, that's not going to impact next year because the area agreement would only, any amendments would apply to 15 and 16. I just wanted you to see if it was 15%, what the difference would be. It would be 10 students. Now 15-16, you'll see here that for Spalding, what we're projecting is 172 students, Kingswood 19, and Lakeside Academy 1, which brings us a total of 192 high school students. At 10%, that puts us at 19 students, and at 15%, that would be 28 students. So if their board does agree to increase to 15%, we'll have an opportunity to have 9 other students attend other schools. So I wanted to make sure the board was aware of these numbers and ask what you'd like for me to do with these at this point. Is it something we want to bring back to the subcommittee at our next meeting? I know that the Rochester full board, I believe they said last night's meeting on April 11th. I'd be happy to go to that board meeting and speak to this if you like, so that the board does know if they make the changes, what the specific projected number might be. The reason why I said that is because last night at the subcommittee meeting, there was a mention about a substantial increase in the numbers that would be going. I want to put a number to that, which would be, in this case, would be 9 additional 9 students that would be going to
I
other.
believe that's April 10th.
April 10th.
That's the second Thursday.
Okay.
The 11th would be Friday. I believe they said it was the second Thursday in the week, right?
So I wanted to give the numbers to the board so you know what we're specifically dealing with when it comes to our discussions of the area agreement.
Well,
What if we can't come to an agreement? What if townspeople in Wakefield support an article on the warrant, as the voters in Middleton did, to send all of our students elsewhere. I think it would be a process of next March on the ballot, and then it would be 15, 16, or 16, 17 year that it would actually take effect. Which year would it be? If, say, I took it upon myself to call Superintendent Cuddy Egbert today, and she did some research, and when she included the 80 students that would be coming out of Middleton, the capacity limits at Kingswood would not be met if we sent all of our students there. And I don't know if the town of Wakefield is ready to support a move like that. But I think it's important to have the discussion with more people in the town. I don't know if that would mean we'd need to seek SAU services elsewhere. I don't think we'd have to. But it's not logical to me for Rochester to say, if you send less students, we're going to increase tuition. You know, it's just, you got a McDonald's and a Burger King on both sides of the street. If a lot more people are going to Burger King, McDonald's doesn't raise their prices to bring them over. They lower their prices. It's competitive. So, I mean, if we could save $400,000 a year on tuition by sending our students to Kingswood, if the voters here in Wakefield thought that that was the proper thing to do, I don't know when to start the discussion. I guess I think the time is now to start the discussion before we sign an area agreement with Rochester.
Mm-hmm. Bonnie?
I guess I have the same concern. I want to do what's best for our children, but I think it's time that we ask the families of Wakefield what they want before we start pushing the envelope and making assumptions that I don't feel comfortable making. I think it's time that we, at some point, survey the families that are here and ask them what they want. I don't know if that's been done. I mean, you can go around and ask a handful of people, but has a survey ever really been given saying, what high school would you prefer us to deal with? I mean, and that would give us I would hope that the response from that would be huge. And I don't want anyone in Rochester to ever think that, they're not going to be able to finish their high school career there because they've started there and they've got their niche. But I guess I just want the information from the families in town, what they want from us. What direction do they want us to go? Do they want us to continue negotiating with Rochester? Do we have a majority of people that if transportation was provided, would they want to go to Kingswood? How do we ask that? Can you help us formulate a way to get that information?
I would see that as a simple survey that could go home to families. We could definitely send it out through Paul School as a survey and have it come back that way. It's something that we could try to figure out also how to put that survey online.
Starting
so people
young.
can access.
Like ask the preschool and kindergarten, ask everybody.
Mhm.
If, your child now, where would you want them? Because it's gonna have to be a transition. If we choose to do anything like
Yeah.
that, it's gonna be a multiple year transition.
Yeah.
And we're still gonna want the children, just like we might consider going to Kingswood, the children that wanna go to Spalding, we still wanna accommodate them as well. So I guess I would like to ask the rest of the board to maybe support getting that done, lickety-split, so that we can have that information and move forward to know if we're on the right path for them or not.
I would agree with that. It should be done, because we've been looking at this for just two years.
Too long without answers.
Right, but, 2 years that I've been doing it, we went over that, and we took a tour, and it is a nice facility, and we should consider it.
Can you maybe get something together and bring it to the next one, like an example of what you'd ask?
It's basically a draft survey
Yeah.
from the board.
Perfect.
via the superintendent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And I had to make sure that, capacity, what I was told was they had planned for larger enrollments in the future, and the reality of it is enrollment's decreasing over at Governor Wentworth Regional. So
It's
didn't seem to
decreasing
be-
everywhere.
It is decreasing everywhere. Yeah.
It's decreasing here.
Heading for the cracker factory. Oops. That's us old folks.
That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Old business. Bob's old. Bob,
I guess this is old business. Cafe services. Last meeting, I believe I asked you, Jerry, how cafe service was doing. You said little hiccups with, internal stuff.
Yeah.
Moving forward, I think that the committee, myself and Bonnie, I personally like to see maybe another survey go out to the parents and see how this is actually working for them for the upcoming next year type of thing. I'm hearing a little bit of myself, that the food's still not there. Just a few comments here and there, so I just like to know this for myself and how the teachers, the students, and the parents feel about continuing this for next year.
Why would you say the food's not there physically, or it's not? It's the quality isn't what they would expect.
Not the quality, and there's still a lot of waste. So that means that the menu choices that are happening aren't making the children happy. So if the children aren't happy, there's gonna be waste of food, which means being waste of product, which is waste of money and time. And I think that part of their cafe services agreement is they're supposed to send a survey out once a year. That's part of their contract, and we haven't seen that yet.
And we did talk about that last year.
So I guess where I'm on board with Bob, that I want that survey out, and I don't wanna wait any longer.
May I?
Uh-huh.
Yes.
I think it'd be good to possibly bring representative from Cafe Services here to meet with the board so they can answer any questions you might have. And if you want to emphasize that the survey needs to go out.
Well, I think it should go out.
Absolutely. So would you like for us just to contact Cafe Services to make sure that survey goes out? Question number one. Number two, do you have questions that you feel should be answered by Cafe Services? Because we can make arrangements for them to come here and speak with you.
Why don't we all make a list and then bring them together at our next meeting so we can formulate a plan, but hopefully before then you can contact Cafe Services and have that survey sent out.
Sounds great.
And if we could get copies of the survey that they send out, that would be advantageous to my record-keeping process.
Thank you.
you all done with
I'm all done.
old business, Mr. Orlett? Okay. School board business, board goals, strategic action plan, evaluation of the school board. Mr. Jersey?
Thank you. This agenda item was tabled to this meeting, so I want to make sure I got it back on here. In the school board policy, it states that prior to establishing school board operational goals, that you perform what's known as an evaluation, in this case a self-evaluation, and the board did adopt an evaluation tool in October of 2013. So I have a copy of that for you in your packet. What I would recommend is that the board takes this evaluation tool, fills it out, and brings it back. It's something you could give to me. And what I tend to do is I correlate each individual component. I correlate the number of responses, meaning that if you look at it, I'll give you an example under A, relationship with the superintendent. What you would do is you would rate this component as 1 as never or 5 as always. So if, let's say, Mr. Fogg puts a 3, Mr. Brown puts a 3, that would be 2 3s, that I would correlate that, and if there were 2 2s, and then I would average them out. So let's say that across the board, everyone scored that as a 4. Your average would be a 4 for that component as a board. Everyone would score the next one, number 2, and let's say the average comes out as a 3 out of 5 numbers, and number 3 comes out as a 2 after an average. As a board, you would look at which of these components has the lowest score, and you tend to develop goals around that. Does that make sense?
I already passed mine.
Fantastic. So I put that information together, and you don't put your name on it or anything like that.
You can't tell who it's from.
Well, if you give it back to them, you can.
Put it all together and give it to me at once. And what I do is I'll provide that score to the board, and you'll be able to see which components you score the lowest on under which topic. And then the board has a discussion about developing goals as an operational goal as a board.
And what else is done with this information?
You develop the goals on it, and then you establish goals as a board, and those goals are defined as board operational goals.
So I
Good, Bob.
So I take it we turn it into the chair.
You can turn it into the chair, absolutely, and I'll take it from the chair.
Well,
What about Part G, policy development, where it has questions about the board, and somebody who's not necessarily on the policy committee or paying attention to all the policy decisions, I answered as honestly as I could, and I kind of have, I couldn't get any higher than a 4 because, I'm not always there. I couldn't honestly say I always did something because I wasn't always there. How does that, if I had to say number 1 on all of those questions because I wasn't always there, I didn't do that, but if that was the case for somebody,
Well,
how does that
I
resonate with the rest of the board members?
I don't think that's right, because policy development, you might not be on the committee, but all policies are brought before you, and you should be taking the time to read them, and then you also get in your packet everything to update your policy book. So those are things that you can say that you've done. And, are the policies accessible? Yes, when the website's up, been updated. And then, I think just because you're not on the committee, that would be like me saying that I don't know what's going on in the building because I'm not part of the facilities committee, but yet, through you, I know.
Okay.
Where are these questions coming from, Mr. Terzi?
This was the sample evaluation of school board that the New Hampshire School Board Association put forward.
Because, I don't know, after looking this over, I'm having some major concerns with getting people to just follow along once again.
What do you mean, Steve?
I believe that there is a shift. That there's a shift from the decision-making from the board to administration. Everything that I've seen, they want us to just follow along. Don't ask questions. Just do what you're told. Follow along. I have any number of these. For example, on page 2 of the evaluation, 13 of the administration, under C, board meetings, number 26. How is further education now become a privilege that should not be abused? Who made the decision? Because every single one of us have an absolute right to further educating ourselves. especially on board matters, so that we can all make informed decisions. Who has already made the decision that further study, further education is now a privilege, not a right? I have a huge problem with that, and that it's not abused. What does that tell you? What that tells me is that they want the powers that be, and I'm not, don't take it personally at this level. I know it's all top down, and it's coming down from the state and the federal government. But they want us as a board to be uninformed. To be uninformed for further study, further education, because now the powers that be have made your right to further education a privilege that should not be abused. What does that tell you? They want school boards to just follow along with what is being put in front of them. Another perfect example of just following along. Page 1 of the school board evaluation, or 12 of the administration. Number 10, takes the initiative in maintaining a professional salary for the superintendent comparable with salaries paid for similar responsibility in and out of the profession. They just want you to follow along. If there's another superintendent and another SAU in New Hampshire and they're making X amount of dollars, you just follow along and pay your superintendent.
We did discuss that in detail.
It takes, that right there takes job performance right out of the picture. You are just to conform. We're just becoming sheep here. And with the decision-making is really being taken away from the board. Page 3, number 28. Board meeting. Controversial, complex, or complicated matters are held over or placed on the agenda for discussion only. Who made that decision? We didn't.
So maybe it would be best if you, do we get to see each other's, or like he's sharing his concerns about it now? And I mean, I might have concerns as I'm going through it, and Ralph had concerns. Do we share those concerns with one another, and then that's brought to us as a whole?
No, what you would want to do, since this has been adopted by the board, it's already been vetted through the policy subcommittee, is you'd send this back if you're looking to maybe withdraw some of the questions or amend some of the questions, however that might be. That's how you would do that.
Do you want to send it back to the committee?
Please, absolutely.
Should we
at least do it for our own
Well,
information?
should we do it as far as what we feel that the questions should be taken out as individuals?
I'm sorry, to go over it to see what questions to be taken out?
Yeah, and then give it back to them.
No, like, answer the questions that we feel comfortable answering.
That's not what I was saying. but,
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought that's what you meant.
For questions, and I agree with Steve on a couple of these, that I wouldn't want to answer them either. So if it's gonna go back, should we individually go through and say, I don't want this one here?
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Because, I mean, as another example, well, this says page 1, but it can't be. It's the SAU, page 16, the second to last page.
It's a different title. Individual board member self-evaluation worksheet.
Right,
Yeah,
but
that
it's page
sheet is-
1 of 2, but but anyways, number 11. I respect this is, individual board member self-evaluation. I respect the superintendent's office and refrain from unwarranted interferences in the administrator's affairs. If a board member has a question, why shouldn't that question be answered? who, but now, you're giving up, the decision-making is being taken away from us once again, because your question to a superintendent may be, to a superintendent, an unwarranted interference.
Agree with that 100%.
And if you as a board member have a this is the, do you see what, I see a much bigger picture here, and.
Mr. Tercey didn't write this.
No,
No, I understand, and I told him, I'm not,
and
I'm not putting,
we approved it.
right,
So
but,
upon
okay.
reflection, we need to go back to policy committee.
Well, right, but now this is 7 months later, and after researching information that we're really not getting, I'm now seeing a lot more than I did 7 months ago. And I'm now having a lot of problems with these. So,
How do you want to
5
move
months ago.
forward?
let's send it back to the policy committee.
And can if it's gonna come back to us, can we ask that you
Well,
please go through and give us
how
what you
about-
feel is important to not be
I
there?
think that's the best way to do it.
Do we need time, will we have enough time, or should we put it off to the second policy
Let us
committee
take,
meeting?
let us take it home,
Right.
and then we'll turn it into you.
We'll turn it into you and then we
Okay.
will make
Absolutely, that's a good idea.
a, okay.
Do that, all right? Everybody all right with it?
You ain't taking mine.
I don't want
You're taking
yours.
yours.
All right, thank you.
I think it should be Ralph evaluated.
Committee reports. Don't think,
For, I get a second chance?
do we have it? We don't
Take
have anything.
advantage of it.
We can be out of
Oh, please, I hope so.
I have
Steve?
Can we
Good.
excuse the administration so they can?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
You sure?
Thank you.
so long.
Thank you.
Committee reports, what do we?
We had the area agreement committee.
I'll hear you in the morning.
Yeah.
We want to get back to Steve
Anything
I
you
would
wanna,
say as soon as possible.
by next meeting.
you know, expand on your thoughts on
Next
that
meeting, and
thing?
then that'll give us time to go over it as a group.
Thank you.
Yeah, just, we did meet with, the Rochester School District last night to talk about the area agreement. Presently, we're allowed to send 10% of Wakefield students to other schools other than Spalding. We're trying to get that increased. They came back that they were adamant at the 10%.
They did
So-
change it. They did change it, so it was a aggregate of all 4 classes instead of just each class.
Right. But
Which-
we are still requesting, and we may go down to one of their board, meetings. We're trying to get it to at least 15, but it's not looking good.
And the policy meeting, we met today.
Yeah,
And the policy committee met today, we went over, some internet policies that will be brought to the full board at the next meeting.
all right, anything else? We can think of? Public comment. So,
You know what, we needed Jerry.
oh, yeah.
Jerry?
What is that?
What?
You want to say?
I don't know.
I think you're alluding to it.
What was that? Sorry about that, Liz.
So you're getting away, huh?
Like Superman in the phone booth. Right there.
Right.
Tie was off and everything.
Any public comment?
Priscilla?
Could you tell me why the board would withdraw all the previous votes that the board has taken?
Yeah, apparently there was some, we were under the impression that Mrs. Joy was a board member. Apparently, at the deliberative session, it came out that she wasn't. So we've gone through, discussed it with the school district attorney, to try to rectify the situation. It's now been rectified.
If appreciate your honesty. Thank you very much. And Ralph had suggested to me as we were standing up there in a little room waiting for votes to be counted, that I send my questions to Mr. Tercey rather than state them in a board meeting so that he could get information. And I just wondered if Mr. Tercey was going to address any of my questions.
I hope to clarify that previous boards that you sat on have requested questions in advance so that we could be prepared to answer the questions.
Correct.
And I believe I stated that if you submitted them to our superintendent, he would provide us with those questions as well, and we would all work together to try to answer those questions for you. My suggestion was do it in advance so that we have a week, maybe 10 days, even 2 weeks to answer those questions. So,
I did that, Mr. Bob.
okay. Thank you.
I think you're not going to answer any more questions.
No, Steve.
Can I
Bob,
ask one question then?
Bob,
Sorry.
I was under the impression, being a newbie last year, that when the public asks a question, that has to be on the agenda. Is that correct, saying that?
that's what policy states.
A question has to be on the agenda?
You have to, it has to be part of the agenda of what you're
Yeah.
asking.
Could you tell me what policy that
Pertain to
is?
it.
I don't have the policy number right off the top of my head,
Because
but
I'm not
it,
familiar with that policy.
but it is in there.
I'd stab at JAFB, but I'm not sure
We have it right there?
what policy number is it.
That was fast.
BEDH.
Oh, that's right. That's not in the J's.
I can read it. BDH, number 2. Members of the public may offer comments on agenda items only. The board will not entertain comments on items that do not appear on the agenda. Requests to address the board on matters not on the agenda must be presented to the superintendent and must set forth the policies of the subject to be addressed. When appropriate, the board may place such requests on the agenda.
Okay, and, I mean, Steve, you sat in the audience a long time, and you know we didn't adhere to that policy strictly, and we let you speak many times.
Yeah, and many times I was shut down. And as a matter of fact, Priscilla, you kicked me out of the building. Have I kicked you out of the building yet?
I haven't, you haven't had any reason to.
But you did kick me out of the building, so yeah, you didn't allow public comment yourself.
You had an awful lot of public comment, that's beside the point.
Well, you're the one who brought it up, so
Okay.
let's move on.
Can I just ask one question? If we don't have a curriculum, how do you explain the math curriculum on the website?
We'll have to take that under advisement.
Could you tell me what taking it under advisement means? Does that mean eventually I'll get an answer?
Well, I just read you part of policy BEDH.
Okay, I will comply with that and make sure it's in the writing and ask to be
Okay.
put on the agenda. Will it be put on the agenda? You've refused me on the agenda before.
Well, listening, it says when appropriate.
So you'll determine when it's appropriate.
Well, that is the policy.
So your authority,
I don't have no authority.
you have the authority to determine whether or not it's appropriate.
I have no authority. All right, thank you. Can I have a motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A32, A, B, and C? Nominations, resignations, and personnel.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and second, all in favor?
Fall guy.
Full that eye.
Joy, aye?
Brown, yes. Thank you for coming.
Okay, I'm gonna tell you, I have to pick my kid up at 8 downtown.
It's
So
snowing.